Okay, friends, this is the next part of an earlier podcast. If you missed the first part, go check your Gritty Bowman library for the earlier part.
He gets down, and it's been like 7 or 8 minutes, and I'm seeing the bull's coming, screaming his head off. I'm like, well, dude, you've had enough time. I'm going to have to call this thing and get it kind of close to you, thinking it'll just walk by you. And so the next thing, the bull is right below me, probably 150 yards, just screaming his head off, and I hear whack.
He's pissed. This bull's just pissed off.
Yeah, I watched him pissed on himself.
And there's nobody in this canyon.
It had never seen human sign before that we could find. No fire later on, no fire pits, no. And there's a reason why, because we hiked out of it. I will not be going back.
Yeah.
It's bad. So but there's several other bulls screaming. Plus, when we glassed that day, there was 5 or 6 raghorns, like satellite bulls running around, 3 different herd bulls at a minimum. There's a lot of elk in this canyon. There's a reason humans don't go there. So
I did that once in the Eagle Caps, where we shot a bull down in this hole. You had to, it was a cliff. There was a cliff face about, 50, there was a couple of them actually, where you had to climb down about 50 feet. And granted, there were big handholds and stuff, but it was still a cliff. There was no like sliding down. There was like forehand, hands and feet climbing down. In a couple of spots. There was nobody down there. I've never seen elk like that. We called in an elk. It came running right in and we shot it. I mean, it's never seen people, or if it does, it's very rare. And it was just a magical place. But at the same time,
a Primo video.
Yeah. But at the same time, that was it. I'm not doing that one again. I mean, it was climbing up cliff we broke the loads down to about 40 pounds each as we scaled the cliff because I mean, you could die. You fall off the cliff. And we didn't have ropes, so we were just kind of doing it. It was cool, but I don't think I'll ever do it again.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was at with this one. Not to mention, we were 11 miles or more from the truck. And then we went so far. Have you ever seen Spaceballs? I kept saying, dude, we went so far, we've gone to Plaid. 'Cause we were closer to the other end of the wilderness than we were the one we started from. And but so we dropped down there and anyway, I'm calling, the bull's bugling and I hear, crack. Well, he hit it and I hear crack. And Colton's a guy, he shoots till it's not moving. I mean, he just keeps shooting.
Yeah.
Crack. And I'm like, well, it obviously is hit because he wouldn't be cracking it again over and over. Something happened. And so he unloaded 4 arrows on that thing, I think.
Now, did it come back to the calls after it got hit?
He dropped it on the first shot. Okay. So what happened when he was working towards the bottom? Because when I got down there, he's like, dude, you almost screwed me calling. And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, I was just going to call it right by you. But he's used to hunting solo. We hadn't hunted. I mean, it wasn't like we were mad at each other. He was laughing. And I'm like, well, dude, I was trying to call it by you so you could stop moving. And he was laughing. He's like, well, dude, I was on that cliff when you bugled and it stopped. So I shot it. Well, I think just like anyone, when he ranged it, I think it was 34 and he shot it for 40. Mm-hmm. So or something like that. And he hit it in the spine high and it dropped it. And then his second shot went in the lungs, but it had rolled a little bit. Well, it was still kind of moving a little bit, so he just unleashed the beast, right? Mostly because I wasn't running, pushing out blood. It was just laying there moving. So, plus, his life dream was laying there, and I would have kept shooting too. So anyway.
Well, I think, if you got an animal. Real quick, I'll interject with this experience I had where I shot this blacktail, my biggest blacktail. Snuck up on him, shot him, hit him kind of high, but through the high on the lungs. So the buck, he immediately falls to the ground, like right where I hit him. Bam, he's on the ground and he's kicking and thrashing on the ground. I run up to him and I stand there. I'm like 12 yards from him and he's just on the ground, like I think dying, right? I think he's done. So he's laying there and he's just twitching and stuff. And I'm like, and I have plenty of time to stick another arrow in him. But I was pretty inexperienced about 10 years ago. I'm just standing there and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just, got this buck, Well, after probably a little over a minute and a half, the thing stops shaking, jumps up on all fours and runs off in the woods. I was like, my buddy was standing there too. He had enough time to like come walking over. We were both standing there side by side while this thing's on the ground. We thinking death, and then it stands up and runs away.
Yeah.
Well, to this day, I was like, I could have shot that thing like 5 more times. I
Yeah.
had all day. I was standing on 12 yards, right? I just was waiting for him to expire.
Yeah.
Anyway, it ended up being this huge nightmare trying to track him, find him, and kill him. And so from now on, dude, if he's there and I can put another arrow in, I'm putting another arrow in. I'm putting as many in as I can, finish him as quickly as I can. Now, I don't want to ruin any meat, but I'm going for the vitals every time as much as I can.
Well, and Colton laid like a group like this in the vitals. Like we were cleaning. I'm like, dude, that's like the Bermuda Triangle. Like he hit here, here, and here. But he was like, man, my dad always told me I shoot until it's not moving anymore. Yeah. So I come down there and I don't show emotion like most people do, right? For whatever, he's doing literally cartwheels in this huge basin at 11.5, 11.6. Yeah.
Dude, admit it. Like, you're sitting there going, crap, now the work begins.
Well, I just was like, dude, that's awesome, man. He's like, are you excited? I'm like, yeah, I'm excited. And he's like, are you sure you're not mad? And I'm like, no, I'm not mad. Like, dude, this is awesome. So we take a bunch of photos and get it cut up, and we had the don't lose your crap rock, because inevitably you always lose something. So I always have, whether it be a game bag or my pack or a rock, I have the leave your crap on the rock so you don't lose your crap later rock. Mm-hmm, and then we have the meat rock, which is where
that's genius.
Yeah, well, you lose enough crap, you find that there will be a don't lose your crap rock. So, and immediately I'm like, Colton, that's the don't lose your crap rock. We got photos of it. There's crap everywhere, all over. And then we had the meat rock, so we were laying it out because there was no flies to speak of and no bugs.
That's cool.
And it was pretty good. Wind blowing down. And
how cold was it?
36 when we shot it, probably 38.
Oh, it's cold, dude.
Yeah, and then it got up to 50, probably pretty, relatively warm. It rained a lot this
season. You looked like you were a little chill, like you were dressed a little warm.
It was cold. Yeah, it was. I kept starting my because we brought the first trip in with mine. Colton brought a mega tarp in a stove, and I brought a super tarp in a stove. Well, then we knew we may get pushed. We knew inevitably that something may happen, or we would have to get like down and dirty cold camp and get right in on them where we may not be able to burn the wood stove, the cylinder stove. So, for all those people that say I'm biased or whatever, we brought Hilleberg's the second trip because I can, even though you're not supposed to, I'll take my stove and warm up my isobutane or my white gas stove. Don't do this at home, kids, and warm my tent up in the morning with it.
Yeah,
which I do not suggest that.
I've done that a lot.
Yeah, I'm a weenie dude. I start that.
Me too.
So we brought those. So we get all the meat out, right? And so we just basically, we've got some crap over here, we got some crap here, we got a dead elk here. So we get all the meat together, and I'm like, dude, we'll go down to the pond, hang up the meat, put it in the creek, whatever, go back, get our stuff, just chill here for a day or two. Or Colton said that, whatever, but let's just hang in Shangri-La, right? Because so Colton's hiking down, and I can hear him yelling, you see these fish? He's like 18-inch cutthroats in the tame, right? Never seen people.
Wow.
So then I'm of course I'm trying to Facebook it up, right? I'm
Colorado paradise here.
It was crazy. And then me being the social media guy, like I'm running all over rocks and trees and hills trying to get a Facebook upload to let people know Colton got this bull. And it didn't work. But as I'm running around like an idiot, I see no firings, no garbage, no footprints, no nothing. I'm like, Colton, this could be a place that if a human has been here, it has not been for quite some time. Most people, even with like, you would need ropes to it was really stupid what we came down to kill this thing. So we get down there, and Colton, he's got a little fishing kit. You saw the photos. He yanks out 17-inch rookie first time, puts big long stick, drops it in, briefs it. I'm like, all right, well, catch a couple more. Let's have dinner. So we cooked fish and tenderloin that night. And then, so the next morning, basically we started at 8:00 in the morning. I think I ended up being about a mile and a half ahead of Colton. I got to the trailhead at 6 o'clock, straight walking all day. My pack with water was 172 pounds. Colton's was 178. And, I'll get hate mail people saying that's not true or whatever, but we can show you the bill for the meat. I can show you the gear I had in the pack. 2 and 2 = 4. It was heavy. I mean, I wouldn't do it again. My knee still hurt. Colton's all jacked up. Like, we had a buddy come in to pick us up because we came out of the other end of the wilderness.
Yeah.
And when he came in there, I'm like, he passed me on the trail. And I'm like, dude, I'm solid. I can make it, because he was going to have me leave some stuff on the trail. I'm like, go help Colton. He's got the horns, and he needs help. So he gets up there. He's like, man, Colton was in the spirit world. He's like wandering around in the grass trying to find water. And what it was he just had pushed himself, because he will do it, to an area that he probably should not have, as far as dehydration and hunger, plus the weight, right?
Yeah.
I basically carried, 165 plus pound person for 8 miles for 10 hours. Colton did the same thing. And so when I got to the truck, right, like, I'm doing a quick body check, IT band tight. Yes. Not good. Butt cheeks hurt. Yes. Like the hip flexors or whatever, they're tight. Feet, not bad. No blisters. I was surprised, but I'm like, I am hungry. So we stop and I eat like a whole pizza, right, when we're done. And I eat 3 of those peanut butter bars. And by the time I got home, I was hungry again. Like, yeah. But I didn't piss right for like 2 days. Like, it was, toxic yellow and smelled funny. Yeah. And I was drinking water. I was just, sweating out more than I possibly could put in. But either way, Colton's bull is right at 320 for growth. Super great bull. We called it off a ton of cows, like his lifelong. I mean, he's all year he talked about it. I just want to shoot a 6x6. And it was awesome for me to see it, because, I mean, literally he's looking at the horns when we're by the fire at camp, and he's like, doesn't that bull look great? It's a great bull, isn't it? Dude, that's such a big bull. We shot the herd bull. Look at those chocolate horns. Like, you can tell he appreciates everything we did for that, which is cool for me, because I've shot some big bulls. And, I mean, it's not like he didn't work for it, dude. We trained our butts off. And, go ahead.
I was going to say, so Anthony shot I think he's about a 310 bull this weekend. And we were in Idaho, and I'll share that story later. But similar to you, I was telling you on the phone, he shoots the bull, and there was a muscle hit on the bull, and we thought he had hit some vitals, but turned out he hadn't. Well, we get on this muscle hit bull, and we know we just got to run it down. So we start tracking the thing, and it's wide open. And the area you're hunting to the area we're hunting, it's like night and day. So it's like, pushing 100 degrees where we're at. It's just wide open grass, but it's straight up and straight down too. But you can see forever. There's no water anywhere except for a few seeps that are covered in elk crap,
Yeah.
But we have to chase this bull. Long story short, that day we end up running up and down these mountains we lost and gained 2,500 feet in elevation 4 times.
So 10,000.
Yeah. And
that's a lot.
And we did 12 miles total for the day. And of hiking, running, some of it, like 7 miles of it was full on jogging as fast as we could up the mountains and down. And so at the end of that, we had to hike out. We put on 200-pound packs. Now, we thought, well, we only got to go downhill, and it's only a mile to this spot where we could get out of there with this bull, because how far he traveled. We were closer to the exit point, like you said. Like, we're miles from where we started. So we had to have someone come pick us up. Dude, we got about 200 yards with 200 pounds, and we were like, oh, we must be retarded. This is never going to happen. Yeah. So we dropped, and I think we dropped down to about 160 pounds is what we ended up with. And we hiked a mile with 160 pounds. And on trail, I could do that for a while, not cumulatively, because I hadn't slept the night before. I drove all night from Oregon to get to Idaho to help Anthony get this bull. But dude, guys might get on there and say, you can't do it. You can't do it. 175 pounds, for 10 miles, blah, blah, blah. It can't be done. It can be done. That can be done if you're fit, if you're in shape. Now, not saying it's good for you.
Yeah. I was gonna say, not suggesting it at your own risk. Gritty Bowman did not sign off on that.
Seriously, like we were talking about this with two guys packing a single elk out with gear, you're pushing 200-pound packs.
Well, it's if you take neck meat and everything, it's 30% of the gross weight when it's on the hoof. Now, in our case, it was around 200 pounds of meat, right? Yeah. Roughly. And we didn't take rib meat or whatever, but with gear, right? What you're talking about, you're at a minimum of 130 pounds each, even with like a lead cow, right? Or a decent sized cow. So a 400-pound cow, 4 times 3, there you go. Yep. So 120 pounds. It's a lot of weight. And I think with like what you were talking about, and I think later in a different segment, we're going to go all the stupid stuff we've done this year. But with Colton and I, as well as I'm sure you and Anthony, the one thing that wasn't just the physical ability, the ignorance to drop down in the hole, the gear to make it happen. Because we could have stayed there for a month. I mean, there's plenty of stuff to live off of.
Yeah.
And then the physical ability to get out. Because I know a lot of guys that may have dropped down that hole and left the elk, which will make me break a guy's arm. Yeah. And just taking the horns out. And for me, I eat, I need 300-400 pounds of meat by the end of the hunting season for the next year because I eat it every day. Well, getting the horns out wasn't as big of a big deal. So I think that not just getting the elk down, but knowing how to get it out. And in your case, it sounds like just as crappy as what we went through. I think people probably think about that before maybe they make some of their decisions. I've known a lot of guys leaving animals on the side of the mountain.
Well, yeah, when we were going down the mountain chasing this thing, we both knew after a while that, you run 7 miles. It's like, well, surely this thing's going to stop at some point. And then you get him down and it's like, okay, now we got this bull down. We are way, way far from anything.
Yeah.
And now it's like, it's a rush. Now we were dealing with heat, a lot of heat.
Yeah.
So we were under these conditions where we're trying to save all of the meat. And, but yeah, you're at, we ended up with a lot of meat, we got it out of there, but dude, we had to drop the head. We had to drop a little bit of the meat. And it was like, we'd go down the trail. Oh, this has to come off. I can't do it. Oh, this has to come off. I can't do it. And pretty soon, up the trail the next day, we had to come back in and get some more and make a second trip. And mostly what we dropped was gear, camera gear, bows, and all that. Which, by the way, our bows took a beating as well. I mean, you strap a 165-pound pack on, and then you put a bow on the back of it, and you're on vertical hills. You slip, you crush your bow, get back up, you go some more. It's really hard for your bow not to take some abuse, but they're shooting great.
I almost always carry mine.
Yeah.
But all that means is a controlled fall out of your hand to a bush that may or may not hit.
The problem is, dude, like the difference with having 2 trekking poles with that much weight versus, 1 or none, it's night and day.
I had to give mine to Colton. Yeah, it was the difference.
I do not understand how anybody can go out with heavy loads and not use trekking poles. Well, they're like the difference between
even one. Like at first I have my bow and my trekking pole.
Yeah.
And when I'm going down steep stuff, I put my palm on the top.
Yeah, me too.
And kind of I don't keep my wrist in the thing. And then if I'm on normal ground, so Colton didn't bring his, and he said over and over, that's one thing I will never. And he almost always brings them.
Yeah.
Well, with the rack, I'm like, dude, I'm solid. I could handle more weight, and I wasn't going to get that rack from him to save his life. So strapping another game bag to the top of my pack wasn't really an option because it'd probably get ripped. So about the only thing I could take from him was gear or the rack. And I was like, dude, if you want to swap back and forth on the rack, I think it was an honor thing. He's like, dude, I'll die before I take this rack off my pack. Like even when our buddy came in and helped him, he still carried the rack out. Our buddy just carried some of the meat, right? So he's like, dude, can you carry my bow? Well, then I'm like, let's see, I have two hands, two bows. I'm like, well, just take the walking sticks then, because I can't use them. So, which was good because that rack, we didn't have much difference in weight.
Yeah.
But the rack was not cool,
Well,
right?
that's what rack is always awkward. If you lean a little to the left, you've got that load that now shifts to the left or shifts to the right, and it's a lot harder, especially if it's dense cover too, because then it's getting caught on stuff, and you're fighting a lot harder with that kind of load.
And we went through the, bubblegum land, pixie stick forest again, right? Deadfall and dog hair thick timber. And then we were hitting, when you get into the real elky looking stuff, especially on the west side where you've got the moss and then the wallows, and then you'll hit like this brown stuff that looks a little muddy and you step in it and it's like knee deep. We had that a lot. Like I went balls deep a couple times where I'm like, I ain't coming out, where it was almost embarrassing. I had to lay on my stomach and pull out because it was too much weight to where normally I could just, when you post hole, just pop my leg. Yeah, no, it wasn't happening. Well, Colton, it eventually, I'm leaving Colton almost died more than once. Well, we both, the night before we dropped into the canyon, we had a lightning storm go right over the top of us, and a tree blew up 250 yards in front of us. Just boom, cloud to ground. And Colton hates lightning. I don't think he's scared of anything else, but he's scared of lightning. He don't like it. I mean, he didn't go off running. He came over. He's like, dude, that sucked. Well, we're hiking down. Mother Nature just likes to stick it in and break it off. Like we're coming out with all that weight, and dude, a microburst hit and blew trees around. Well, and this is what kind of an a-hole I am. He's above me. We're coming down, and a big tree falls 50 yards from me, and it's like close to where Colton was, and 170 pounds on my back. I'm like, well, if it hit him and he didn't die, he'd be making noise. Check. No noise is being made. If it hit him and it squished him and he's dead, an extra minute or two isn't going to hurt anything to get back to him. So I get my pack off, and I'm like, whoa, man, where's he at? And finally I see him. He's like, right here. I'm like, dude, did that almost hit you? And then, several F-bomb later, 20 yards. And I'm like, well, man, you want to just hang out here for a while? Because, like, the wind is just blowing the trees left and right. It's a monsoon. And I'm like, holy cow. So then finally we get to where we can, we think we're at the trail. So it took us just to get to the trail almost 4 hours just to hit a trail to come out. So yeah, it was interesting. The microburst topped it off. Then when he fell and about cut off the salmon eggs and the grubworm, I'm like, it's amazing we didn't hurt ourselves by the time we got to the bottom.
And this brings up a question I have for you, Aaron. So, that experience while you're doing it, especially, is not fun. There's nothing fun about it. Why do you do it?
I know, right? With me, and trying to explain this to guys that are haters or trophy hunters, I would pick that hunt, and I have the chance to hunt private land. An epic hunt like that for me, it's not the inches, even though that was a big bull. It's about the adventure. And unless you're close to death, you're not close to adventure, in my opinion. It's just for me, and not to be like a Billy Bad Butt or whatever, but for me, when it's like that, and maybe it's from being in the military or whatever, when you're that far in and you're living off the land, like we cut up the tenderloin and cooked it and cooked the fish, and then you have basically 8 miles to go in a heavy physical challenge. It's the funnest time of my life. Now, will I drop in that hole again? I don't know, but I will have different gear on the next time I drop into the hole in a different plan. But it, for me, is all about what we did. Like this goat hunt I'm about to go on, where it's the Governor's Mountain Goat tag. My buddy's got the tag. I was with my buddy James Petker when he shot the current archery record. And people cannot. Well, like John, we beat ourselves up for 12 days, and I'm like, that was the funnest hunt of my life. And they're like, you're sick and twisted. And I'm like, that is what it's all about for me. So why, I don't know, but it definitely, that's what trips my trigger, is hunts like that.
I don't know why either. Like, I get out there and every year we do it. Like this one I just did with Anthony, that was just like physically unreal. And you push your body to its extremes and you go out and you have an adventure, but there's an adventure that's short, and then it's like, then there's hell to pay for the next, 2 days or whatever it is to get all your stuff and get out of there and pack all the meat out, and it's heavy, and most guys are just like, this is not fun. This is not fun. How could you ever consider this fun? Why would you ever willingly choose to do this? I can't help it. We get in there and the whole time, and then sometimes I'm sitting there and I'm like, is this going to be my last year elk hunting? Why am I doing this? This is just this is just brutal. And then I get back and I get done and I have a freezer full of meat. And there are other ways I could do it. We've done it where we've driven a road, bugled, jumped off, called in elk, killed them. There's easier ways to do it, but there's just
there's nothing wrong with that way. It's just not my way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something about that adventure going way deep or way high, or that just is exciting. And like you said, living off the land and being out there alone and pushing yourself in dangerous situations. There's just something that's, I don't know, that pulls me in that direction.
Me too. And I mean, I think and we've talked about the haters, the ones specifically before. If it's about inches for you, don't become a backpack hunter, because you're not going to get the inches you probably want backpack hunting. You'll kill decent bulls, but let's face it, if it's about the inches, you need to go buy some landowner tags. You need to buy some private land, find a honey hole, find something, but it won't be
a tag.
Yeah.
Draw the application stuff.
Yeah,
which I do. I do a lot of that. I try to draw a tag. When I do, it's great. It's a totally different hunt. It's fun, but there's something about backpack hunting that just keeps me going.
Yeah, and I mean, when I say that, you can backpack hunt drawing tags and have great hunts. But in Colorado, if you're wanting to hunt over the counter elk every year, or you want the adventure of the inches, to hunt elk every year and kill big elk, specifically in Colorado, you need to buy a landowner tag. You're not going to do it on an OTC tag. You're certainly not going to do it backpack hunting. You may get a big one every now and then, but it's hard for people to understand me, because for me, it's not the inches that's this huge thing. It's just like that hunting trip with Colton and myself. I'll remember that as much for the crappy hike out and the stupid things that happen, and Colton yanking out giant fish with a stick, right? Like I got a bloody nose badly, and I had to jam my lens cloth in my nose, my lens cloth, because that's all I had. So Colton snapping photos, I got this giant bloody rag sticking out of my nose. Just things like that. I mean, for me is a big thing. Plus, as goofy or gay as it sounds, you are living off the land more like the old days. And I hate the city, and I really don't like the current state everything's in. Well, for me, I'm at peace out there. No one's bugging me. I can do what I want. I'm not, getting involved in whether it be traffic jams or a-holes, double parking, or whatever else. I'm living off my back and packing that animal out like people used to do. And I really enjoy that.
Yeah. Well, certainly I think about the meat, where the meat comes from that we eat as a family. And I'm like, let's just say I have a healthy appreciation for where meat comes from in a way that I think a lot of other people don't.
I forgot this part with what you're talking about. So Colton's got the rack in the truck, right? Mm-hmm. See, people are so disconnected to where their meat comes from. We're at a store, and this girl, as she's eating a cheeseburger, walks up and starts gagging, looking at the elk. I can't believe you'd kill that. And then our other buddy says it's the most lean, natural protein you can get. It's no different than what you're doing. It's just leaner, cleaner, and we've earned this. And people are looking at this, we get into this huge debate with people looking at, and we're in front of Whole Foods, which
Yeah.
would be
Right.
the lean, clean place for meat, right?
Right.
Ideally, right? And it is so, people are so disconnected from where that comes from. Now, total combined with Colton and I, we're at 380 pounds of meat probably this year, and we'll end up probably shooting a couple more cows. And Colton, I mean, he's 25 years old, right? His parents aren't rich. He needs the meat, right? He's poor.
Yeah.
And so I think the more people are so disconnected, like the animals die of old age. They just make up meat. It goes on the store. Nothing died to create that meat. It's
Right.
depressing. As a country, America, we're pretty soft. It's in a depressing level.
It's pretty bad. I remember, well, like with this bull that Anthony just shot, we have film. We have a lot of film of this whole hunt, and we'll probably not share much of it because he's hurt, right, and you're running him down, and he's and it's an epic chase, right? Well, finally at the end of that long run, and only most guys wouldn't have the fitness level to do that. They just or the drive, they just wouldn't. So we run it down, and then when it's too tired to go anymore, and we close that gap, Anthony shoots this bull. The bull goes down. It's not pretty, It's just not pretty.
Yeah.
And it's no way do I ever want it to be like that when we harvest an animal, right? We want it to be as clean and efficient as possible, but it doesn't always work. Sometimes things don't go right. So this bull goes down. It's not pretty, but most people couldn't get past that. They would have such a difficult time.
Which is crazy when you look at cattle and poultry farms in comparison. If I have a choice to live a long, happy life and get gut shot 3 times and die in one day, compared to live surrounded by poo in a very small box, just kill me, shoot me 3 or 4 times in the stomach and the kneecaps on that last day, because I would not want. If you've ever been to a cattle and poultry farm,
right there,
it's not a good life.
I think it was Greeley, Colorado. I went up there to what is it, like? I can't remember, Conagra maybe. They have the pork and the meat butchering facility up there, and we did an audit on it back after I got out of college.
That'll make you stop eating bacon.
After that, I never wanted to eat. I was like, they bring these things in these triple decker trailers, and the top deck is crapping and peeing on the middle deck, and then the third deck gets all of what comes through on that deck, and they'll travel in this loaded setup for like two days sometimes, not eating or drinking, just to get to the kill facility, and then they come down the chute and they're all covered in urine and crud, and they come down and they whack them in the head with the piston, and then
well, let's talk about the piston, because I saw it. It's about the size of your thumb. It's stainless steel, and then it's sharp on the end. And if you've ever seen that movie No Country for Old Men, he uses it as an assassination tool, but it basically just straight into the head, this stainless steel tube, and then
between
comes
the
back.
eyes.
Yeah, between the eyes, and
or up a little higher,
and they die
in the brain.
Yeah, the brain, and then obviously with chickens, they just get their head cut off.
Right?
Like they grab their heads. I've watched it, and the freaking chicken is flopping around, and then they just crack its head off and then throw it in a conveyor belt, and then it goes to the people that pluck it.
Right.
The one that I saw. Well,
then they had the kosher meat facility where the bar comes down on the back of the neck of the cow and up on the bottom of the neck of the cow, and then they just cut the throat with the knife. And let it bleed out. Well, you're killing an animal. There's just no way around it. It's killing an animal, and then you get to eat it when you buy it at the store. It didn't just, like you said, it didn't just die of old age. We didn't give it a nice shot where it fell asleep and it was over. It was.
Well, it's also the environment. Putting it into human terms. If I can go out like in a blaze of glory in my prime, I would rather do that than die in the old folks home, right? Where you're keeping like hundreds, thousands in the case of chickens, side by side, like track housing, pooping and crapping on each other. They have no life. Not that chickens need to have a life, but for people that have the argument of, oh, it's a more humane kill. Okay, well, what about the 10 years
humane
of the
life,
cows?
right?
Yeah, the life. That's not humane where they live in
No,
poop.
no. They get fed just whatever is presented. It's not free range, and even those don't have the best life either. But
No.
still, I've never understood the. I guess it's just people are out of touch with how it really happens, where with the conditions that those animals are in, and how they're treated up until they're butchered. And I would much rather, like you, I look at it the same way. I would much rather be a free range elk out there living on my own wits and my own ability to survive and having the freedom to live my life and then getting killed by a predator than I would, or the elements or something, than I would being kept inside some cage and fed whatever I'm fed until I'm butchered. You know, it is just, I would rather
Yeah.
be the other way.
Well, and some people, it is amazing in Colorado. Washington is bad. Like, guaranteed there's going to be some sort of altercation on Baker I mean, to the point I'm about ready to start just wearing neutral colors and a pink pack, right? Like, it's bad when you get out there. But in Colorado, it hasn't been very bad for me. Like, I crossed this one lady coming out. You know, I look a little worse for wear, right? And I'm like, how far am I from the trailhead? Oh, you're almost there. And I'm like, she's like, what's in your pack? And I'm like, a little more than half an elk. Oh, that must be heavy. I'm like, it is heavy. Let's sit and talk about it. She laughed because I popped down on a rock because I needed a break. She was like, so you shot that thing and carried it out? She's like, I've heard of that. That is so crazy. Like, she was cool.
Yeah.
She was a trophy wife looking, you know, whatever you want to, you know, 55 to 60-year-old lady. And very high maintenance, but understood. She was talking about paleo. She's like, I do the paleo diet, and she's does power yoga, maybe.
Yeah.
But she was talking about it, and she's like, how far did you go? I'm like, far, lady. And I'm like, how far am I from the truck? And she's like, you're almost there. It's a half a mile. I'm like, I went 7.5 miles today. And she was like, oh, and you're going to eat that? I'm like, if I wasn't going to eat it, I wouldn't carry it. I'd say it right now. And I said, right meow. And I was like, I can tell you that right meow. And she was like, my son watches Super Troopers. And she knew immediately what I was talking about. And I'm like, do you live in town here? She's like, yeah. And I was like, that's amazing. You got my joke about right meow. So then she was telling me it was like $38 a pound for elk because they buy elk meat.
Oh, wow.
And it's like $38 a pound right now for where they get their elk meat. And I was like, I'm a wealthy man. And she's like, what? And I'm like, I got to have at least 120 pounds of elk meat in this thing. I was like, and she was super cool about it. And a couple other people we passed just gave us kind of, you know, like, oh, what are you doing? Because I was in camo coming out.
Yeah.
But overall, Washington is by far the worst place I've ever hunted and hiked compared for antis.
Really?
Which is bad. Yeah. I don't know about Oregon. I haven't messed around there much.
No, Oregon seems to be, it's probably a lot like Washington.
Well, I think the CrossFit paleo kick is huge. Like, I don't meet very many CrossFitters that aren't down with eating meat, like down with hunting and everything else, even if they're not, maybe hunters.
Right.
They understand the concept and the nutritional value. Because, like, my wife, she spends like $8 a pound for 99% lean turkey, right?
Yeah.
Which pisses me off. Where when I get it, my meat processed, because I don't have time to do it myself, I don't put any fat in it. Mm-hmm. So it's leaner than turkey. You know, wild elk is leaner than turkey, especially farm raised turkey.
Yeah. And you'll just do the burger and stuff just the way it is.
Yeah, I'll throw an egg in it to mix, what I mean, make it stick together if I make patties. But I make a lot, I throw cumin in there and make a lot of just burger. And then I'll throw salad in it for lunches, whatever. So, I mean, there's a million things you can do. But for me, since I eat so much meat that, because I don't eat beef, we eat a lot of turkey or fish or wild game. I need 300 plus pounds for the year because I'll eat a pound a day, or give or take.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I'm in the same boat. I find that it's kind of a welcome relief that there's this whole food kick out there where people are really pushing to find organic sources of meat, and they're looking at like sustaining food, obtaining food from, wild animals instead of from captive raised animals. And it's a cool thing, but you still have a lot of bleeding hearts out there that seem to think, animal lovers, pet lovers that just have this idea in their mind that the burger they just ate grew out of the ground, came from a tree or.
Yeah. Well, I've got, tattoos and a bear claw necklace and I stick out anyway. So people, like when I'm at Vitamin Cottage, they'll ask. And in REI, like the people that run the REI by me, they're hunters, right? Like I bring them elk meat when they don't kill anything.
Yeah.
Like the one lady came up, she was like, "Are you a hunter?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I'm thinking, okay, that's going to get ugly. She's like, she kind of put her head down. She's like, "Can you bring me some elk burgers?" Like, oh, hell yeah. How much do you want? She's like, "Oh, my husband didn't get one this year." And I'm like, "Oh, this is a cool REI here." Like, and it's funny because, and they listen to the podcast. The guy's name's Dan. He's super, super cool.
Yeah.
He's a hardcore dude too. Like he had like a blood clot in his heart and just thought like he had indigestion and kept hiking. I'm like, what the hell, dude? Anyway, but like, at that, REI there, like, I shop too much there. It's the one that's in Littleton or whatever. But I go to the downtown one. Yeah, no, it's different. It's complete.
That thing's huge, by the way. It's a nice REI. It's cool looking.
Yeah. But you get but
they stopped carrying fly fishing gear.
Well, they stopped carrying fishing and hunting licenses too. But I think that's more. I think that was a hunting related thing. I think it was more of a pain in the butt thing to carry the licenses than anything.
You think so? Because at first they used to do it, and then they cut back. And then it was, hey, we don't sell fishing gear, but we will sell fly fishing gear for catch and release. And then pretty soon it was no gear at all.
Oh, that you could be right on that. I don't know. And I know
just at some point it was like they just bailed out of all animal, like they're not going to represent hunting or fishing at all.
It could be. And I've stopped shopping at REI because of that reason. And maybe my buddy Dan, he listens to these. The guy, he's a manager at the one. He'll probably chime in and talk to me about it and get the real story, because I've started to go into a couple of mountaineering stores that are hunters. Not all of them. You get a couple chuckle-headed kids that, at 19 you read a book, you know everything in the world. Like so, but they're pro hunting.
Yeah. Same
thing, CrossFit guys, and they a couple of the ones I've gotten into bows, and like they're like, dude, this is way, way harder than I thought.
Yeah. You know what I think too is that a lot of folks stopped. They got into hunting, or they got tired of. They got into hunting TV shows, or hunting TV shows started to catch on. People were watching those, and let's face it, they just did us a disservice for a long time.
Yeah.
And that made a lot of people turn, I think, anti-hunting that didn't used to, because all that was glorified in the hunting shows was the kill. Nothing leading up to it, not eating the meat, none of that stuff was really part of the whole story. And so now that is, I think and then you got the paleo and the health kick and all that coming along. It's changing.
Which Steven, like Ranella, he's good about, he transfers. But like I think I told you about the TV show that I was supposed to do, or they talked to me, and it was a chef, right? And the chef was like, I was supposed to guide the chef and kill stuff, and then he was going to cook it. And so like the whole idea was this survival, type situation to where like you are, I got water bottles laying all over my office. Like you're basically, they would drop us out in the middle of nowhere. And then you would basically be like hunting, killing stuff, and then the chef would cook it, and you would have to keep him alive. And I interviewed for this, and I didn't sign anything. I don't think I was supposed to talk about it. But like, when I'm doing this casting role, I'm like, well, where all are we going? Like what, right. And they're like Africa, where all over these places, Madagascar, wherever. And I'm like, so all I got to do is keep this dude alive, and then he's going to cook it. And he's like, well, you'll be doing a lot of the native cooking rituals or whatever else. Like they were talking, and what it reminded me of was, and I think I don't have Ranella's book in here, but was that They're kind of copying the meat eater
Yeah,
somewhat,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Which is fine, but it was a cool idea because then they would like, if you're in Africa, however they cook things, like in Korea, they cook dogs alive because I saw it happen, whatever. So anyway, it sounded cool, but it's definitely a trend that seems to be happening.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's cool. I got to get a lot more meat in the freezer before the end of this season. I got a little now. Although that bear yielded like 250 pounds of meat. One thing I screwed up on that bear though was, and I didn't. This is my first bear that I butchered myself. I didn't take the meat or the fat off of the bear. I left a lot of it right there. I just ground up the burger with trim in it, right? Well, bear fat will go rancid in the freezer like in 4 months.
Yeah, it can.
And so I didn't know that. And we've had a few pieces now that kind of have a little flavor to it. So we're probably just going to can it now, pull it all out, unthaw it, and can it here this weekend, and get it all jarred up because that's 250 pounds of meat that we got from that bear. He was a monster. And that's just a lot of meat. You add another elk to it and a little more. And I'm about like you. I needed like 400 pounds of meat in there to last me the whole year. Otherwise, I got to go buy like a side of beef and some pig or something else too, which we usually buy a half a pig anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's good. I mean, like I've got, I still have a deer tag left, and then, depending or whatever, there's sometimes listy tags, but usually usually each year I shoot a bull, a cow, and a deer. If not, I'll shoot a bull and a cow. The deer thing though, that last week, if I get back in time from the goat hunt, I mean, I got a couple days left. I probably shoot one of those 160-inch deer to get one in the freezer.
How much meat are you getting off of a big mule deer there in Colorado?
65, 75 pounds, give or take. But I usually, when people ask me, I just tell them figure 65 to 70 is a decent, buck, basically the amount of weight you're going to get.
Yeah.
And it's been pretty true. It depends. Like I don't take the rib meat, and I usually don't take the heart and liver. Patrick gives me crap. He eats the heart and liver. If I killed it right beside the road, I'd pack the heart and liver out for him, but I barely made it out myself.
Yeah.
On this last one. So yeah, the heart and liver ain't coming with me on that one.
What am I like? I'm hiked in because I have a mule deer tag in Colorado for November. Yeah. So I'm pretty excited to get up there and do that. But like I shot a black-tailed doe last year.
Yeah.
The hung weight when I took it into the butcher, just all on the bone, just the carcass, right? The head, most of the neck, everything's there, just the feet and the neck's gone, right? It's been gutted. Yeah. The hung weight, including the heart and liver, the thing weighed 60 pounds.
Oh, Lord, yeah.
And so then when they butchered it and took all the bone out, I came home with like 25 pounds, 30 pounds, not a lot of meat. It was kind of disappointing. I didn't realize I hadn't shot a doe in a long time where I actually weighed it. I know there's not a lot of meat, but this is the first time I shot a doe and weighed it, and I was like, man, those black-tailed does are just tiny. They're tiny.
Yeah. Well, it's that 30% thing you can figure on almost every animal. Not every animal, but a 200-pound mule deer is a pretty big mule deer, so that's 60 pounds of meat. 220, whatever, so you're at 65 to 70 pounds of meat. Now, I shot one that was kind of big body, tasted like crap. We ended up making burger and the whole thing, where I had gotten 78 pounds out of it. But the thing was recessed so bad, and it was like, as far as going in the negatives, and didn't really have much for teeth. So I doubt it would have been as big the next year.
Yeah.
But I figure a 200-pound, mule deer, 180 to 220 generally, depending upon their age and everything else. And I'm not an expert, and I don't go weigh all the mule deer and ask them to hop on a scale. But from what I've seen, anyway, that's where they're at. So,
all right, dude.
Yeah, we should wrap this up.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on. You're going to take off to Washington for the goat hunt, and then you come back.
Try and get that mule deer for a few days, and then I go to Idaho with Ryan and Tanya. The guy, Ryan owns Rock Slide. Mm-hmm. She drew a crazy Idaho tag. I'm going to go out there and help them with that.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, it's good talking to you. Good luck out there.
Yep.
And we'll see you when you get back.
Sounds good, man. See ya.
Bye. All right, friends. Thanks for listening and supporting the podcast. Don't forget about our deal with Mountain Ops. Type in the word gritty at checkout and get 20% off until the end of the year. For those of you who have not seen the Full Draw Film Tour this year and want to go, check out their website for their tour schedule. And if you haven't done so, go and subscribe to our YouTube channel or to the Gritty Bowman TV podcast on iTunes or Podbean so you can see all the latest video content we have produced. And be sure to have a look at the new Elk 101 website where you can find our podcast and other great elk hunting content. Thank you for taking the time to leave us your feedback. We really appreciate your sincere support of our show. Finally, let me leave you with this quote by President Theodore Roosevelt, who in 1905 said, "In a civilized and cultivated country, wild animals only continue to exist at all when preserved by sportsmen. The excellent people who protest against all hunting and consider sportsmen as enemies of wildlife are ignorant of the fact that in reality, the genuine sportsman is by all odds the most important factor in keeping the larger and more valuable wild creatures from total extermination." Friends, always take the time to educate those around you about your role as a hunter in preserving the wild creatures of this world. If you don't, who will? As always, good luck on your hunts and stay gritty.
This is Ty Stubblefield, and you're listening to the Gritty Bowman.
Gritty Bowman.